We've got a rich meal before us. Let's dig in. Chapter 13 marks a significant shift in Jesus' teaching method. Following the escalating conflict with the Pharisees in Matthew 12, Jesus now teaches the crowds extensively in parables. This strategic choice helps to reveal truth to those who are receptive, ears to hear, while concealing it from those who are hardened in unbelief, fulfilling Isaiah's prophecy, Matthew 13:14-15. The parables collectively explain the nature, growth, and destiny of the kingdom of heaven during Jesus' absence. Our introduction to parabolic teaching, Matthew 13, 1-3a. Jesus adapts his teaching method to the growing crowds and opposition. 1. Jesus teaches by the sea, verses 1-3a. That same day, Jesus went out of the house and sat beside the sea, and great crowds gathered about him, so that he got into a boat and sat down, and the whole crowd stood on the beach. And he told them many things in parables, saying, ESV. That same day links this to the preceding conflicts in Matthew 12. Jesus moves from a house, private teaching to disciples, to the public realm by the Sea of Galilee. The great crowds necessitate his teaching from a boat, which acts as a natural amplification platform. This begins the Parabolic Discourse, a series of parables about the kingdom of heaven. Imagine a public speaker who, seeing a vast audience on a crowded shore, strategically uses a boat just offshore. The water naturally carries his voice to the listeners, creating an effective open-air classroom. Jesus, the master teacher, adapts his setting to reach the multitudes. Second, the parable of the sower, Matthew 13:3b-9. This foundational parable illustrates the different responses to the message of the kingdom of heaven. A sower went out to sow, and as he sowed, some seeds fell along the path, and the birds came and devoured them. Other seeds fell on rocky ground where they did not have much soil, and immediately they sprang up, since they had no depth of soil. But when the sun rose, they were scorched, and since they had no root, they withered away. Other seeds fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked them. Other seeds fell on good soil and produced grain, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. ESV. This parable draws on standard agricultural practices. The sower, Jesus or any preacher of the gospel, scatters the seed, the message of the kingdom. The varying outcomes depend entirely on the soil, the condition of the hearer's heart. Along the path, hardened, unreceptive ground where the seed cannot penetrate. Rocky ground, shallow soil over bedrock, allowing quick growth but no deep roots. Among thorns, good soil but infested with competing weeds that choke out the good plants. Good soil, receptive, deep soil that allows the seed to flourish and produce abundant fruit. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. A call to spiritual discernment. Not everyone listening will understand or receive the truth. Imagine a gardener scattering precious seeds. Some land on the concrete path and are eaten by birds. Others land in a shallow patch of dirt over rock, sprout quickly, but die under the sun. Some fall into thorny bushes and are choked out, but some land in rich, deep soil, taking root and producing a bountiful harvest. The gardener's method is consistent, but the outcome varies with the ground. Third, the purpose of parables. Matthew 13:10-17. Jesus explains why he uses this teaching method. 1. Disciples' question, verse 10. Then the disciples came and said to him, "Why do you speak to them in parables?" ESV. The disciples, noticing the shift in teaching style, inquire about its purpose. They recognize that parables are often riddles that can obscure as much as they reveal. 2. To reveal and to conceal, verses 11-13. And he answered them, "To you it has been given to know the secrets of the kingdom of heaven, but for them it has not been given. For to the one who has, more will be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. This is why I speak to them in parables, because seeing they do not see, and hearing they do not hear, nor do they understand." ESV. Exposition. Jesus states that parables have a dual purpose: to reveal truth to those who are receptive and chosen by God. To you it has been given. Secrets, mysteria, mysteries, here refers to previously hidden truths now being revealed. To conceal truth from those who are hardened in unbelief, for them it has not been given. The parables act as a judgment, hardening those who refuse to genuinely seek understanding. To the one who has, more will be given. From the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. This principle means that spiritual understanding grows with reception. Those who respond to the initial truth receive more. Those who reject it lose even what little understanding they had. Imagine a teacher giving a complex puzzle to his diligent students. He gives clues that help them solve it. To students who are openly disrespectful and uninterested, he gives riddles that only deepens their confusion. The teaching method serves to further separate the receptive from the resistant. 3. Fulfillment of Isaiah's prophecy, verses 14-15. Indeed, in their case, the prophecy of Isaiah is fulfilled that says, "You will indeed hear, but never understand, and you will indeed see, but never perceive. For this people's heart has grown dull, and with their ears they can barely hear, and their eyes they have closed, lest they should see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and turn, and I would heal them." ESV, quoting Isaiah 6:9-10. Matthew explicitly states that the people's lack of understanding fulfills Isaiah's prophecy. This isn't just about their inability, it's about their unwillingness to hear and see, leading to judicial hardening by God, lest they should see and turn, and I would heal them. Their spiritual blindness is a consequence of their persistent rejection. A person deliberately closes their eyes and plugs their ears while a crucial announcement is being made. When later questioned, they claim ignorance. Their lack of understanding is a direct result of their willful refusal to listen. 4. blessedness of the disciples, verses 16 to 17. But blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear. For truly I say to you, many prophets and righteous people longed to see what you see, and did not see it, and to hear what you hear, and did not hear it. East 5. Jesus contrasts the disciples' blessedness with the crowd's blindness. The disciples are privileged to live in the time of the kingdom's full arrival, seeing and hearing the Messiah himself, a privilege that Old Testament prophets and righteous individuals long to see but never experience. Imagine a group of ordinary citizens who are invited behind the scenes to witness a historical event that kings and prophets of previous generations only dreamed of. Their privilege is immense simply because they are present at the moment of fulfillment. 4. Explanation of the parable of the sower. Matthew 13:18 to 23. Jesus now reveals the meaning of the foundational parable to his disciples. 1. The seed along the path, verses 18 to 19. Hear then the parable of the sower. When anyone hears the word of the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes and snatches away what has been sown in his heart. This is what was sown along the path. ESV. The word of the kingdom, the gospel message, falls on a hardened heart. Because there's no understanding or receptivity, Satan, the evil one, immediately removes the message before it can take root. The precious seeds fall on a busy footpath, unable to penetrate the hard, packed ground. Before anyone can even notice them, birds, Satan, swoop down and carry them away, leaving the path bare. 2. The seed on rocky ground, verses 20 to 21. As for what was sown on rocky ground, this is the one who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy, yet he has no root in himself, but endures for a while, and when tribulation or persecution arises on account of the word, immediately he falls away. ESV. This person initially receives the gospel with enthusiasm and joy. However, their faith is shallow, lacking root, deep conviction, understanding, and commitment. Their endurance is only for a while. When tribulation or persecution arises on account of the word, suffering that comes because of their faith, they quickly abandon it. Seeds planted in a shallow tray of soil over bedrock sprout quickly because of the immediate moisture and warmth. They look promising, but when the intense sun, trouble, beats down, their lack of deep roots means they quickly wither and die, having no access to sustained nourishment. 3. The seed among thorns. Verse 22. As for what was sown among thorns, this is the one who hears the word, but the cares of the world and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word, and it proves unfruitful. ESV. Here the soil is good enough for growth, but competing priorities choke the word. The cares of the world, anxieties about daily life, and the deceitfulness of riches, the seductive allure and false promises of wealth overwhelm the spiritual life, preventing it from bearing fruit. Good seeds are planted in rich soil, but that soil is also infested with aggressive weeds. Both the weeds, worldly concerns, and the good plant, the word, begin to grow, but the weeds, drawing away all the nutrients and sunlight, eventually choke out the good plant, leaving it unfruitful. 4. The seed on good soil, verse 23. As for what was sown on good soil, this is the one who hears the word and understands it, and indeed bears fruit, in one case 100-fold, in another 60, and in another 30. ESV. This person hears the word and understands it, not just intellectually, but spiritually, leading to reception and obedience. This deep reception results in bearing fruit, a transformed life, righteous living, and participation in God's kingdom. The fruitfulness varies 100-fold, 60, 30, emphasizing that while the depth of fruitfulness differs, it is always present where the word is truly received. Seeds fall into rich, deep, fertile soil that has been well prepared. They take deep root, grow strong, and when the season is right, produce an abundant harvest, far exceeding the initial seed. This represents a heart that truly embraces God's word, allowing it to transform and create a fruitful life for his glory. 5. The parable of the weeds, Matthew 13, 24 to 30. This parable illustrates the coexistence of true and false believers within the kingdom of heaven until the final judgment. 1. Sowing wheat and weeds, verses 24 to 26. He put another parable before them, saying, the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a man who sowed good seed in his field, but while his men were sleeping, his enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and went away. So when the plants came up and bore grain, then the weeds appeared also. ESV. The man who sowed good seed is God or Jesus. The field is the world. The good seed are the true believers, sons of the kingdom. While his men were sleeping, suggests a period of vulnerability. His enemy, Satan, maliciously sows weeds, zizania, likely darnel, a poisonous weed that looks identical to wheat in its early stages, among the wheat. Both grow together. Imagine a farmer planting a field with carefully selected pure wheat seeds. But one night, an enemy sneaks in and deliberately sprinkles harmful, look-alike weed seeds among the good ones. As the crop grows, it becomes impossible to distinguish the good from the bad until harvest time. 2. Question of the servants and wait until the harvest, verses 27 to 30. And the servants of the master of the house came and said to him, Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? How then does it have weeds? He said to them, An enemy did this. So the servants said to him, Then do you want us to go and gather them? But he said, No, lest in gathering the weeds you root up the wheat along with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. And at harvest time I will tell the reapers, Gather the weeds first, and bind them in bundles to be burned, but gather the wheat into my barn. ESV. The servants, angels or zealous disciples, want to remove the weeds immediately, but the master wisely commands patience, no lest in gathering the weeds you root up the wheat along with them. It's too complicated and risky to separate them prematurely. The harvest represents the end of the age, and the reapers are angels who will perform the final separation. The farmer's workers, seeing the weeds, want to pull them immediately. But the wise farmer says, No, the roots of these weeds are so intertwined with the wheat that if you pull the weeds now, you'll destroy the wheat too. We must wait until harvest. Then the true nature of each plant will be clear, and we can separate them without damaging the good crop. This illustrates God's patient waiting for the final judgment to separate true believers from false professors. 6. The parables of the mustard seed and leaven. Matthew 13:31 to 33. These parables illustrate the unexpected, robust growth and pervasive influence of the kingdom of heaven. 1. The mustard seed, verses 31 to 32. He put another parable before them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is like a grain of mustard seed that a man took and sowed in his field. It is the smallest of all seeds, but when it has grown, it is larger than all other garden plants and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and make nests in its branches. ESV. The mustard seed was proverbial for its smallness. Jesus compares the kingdom of heaven to this seemingly insignificant beginning. It starts small, Jesus' humble ministry, a few disciples. Still, it grows into something substantial, larger than all other garden plants, and becomes a tree, providing shelter and influence. Birds making nests in its branches, symbolizing the inclusion of Gentiles and the expansive reach of the kingdom. Imagine a tiny, almost invisible speck planted in the ground. Over time, it grows into a massive tree, much larger than any other plant in the garden, providing shade and refuge for countless creatures. This illustrates the humble, unpretentious beginnings of God's kingdom, which through divine power will grow into an unexpectedly vast and influential reality. 2. The leaven, verse 33. He told them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like leaven that a woman took and hid in 3 measures of flour till it was all leavened. ESV. Leaven, yeast, is a small hidden agent that works pervasively to transform a large quantity of dough. Similarly, the kingdom of heaven, though it begins subtly and operates internally, will exert a pervasive, transforming influence throughout the world and within individual lives until its work is complete. Consider a tiny pinch of yeast added to a large bowl of dough. You can't see the yeast working immediately, but over time, its hidden, pervasive influence causes the entire mass of dough to rise and change. This illustrates the subtle, internal, yet unstoppable and transforming power of God's kingdom as it expands its influence in the world. 7. Fulfillment of prophecy and explanation. Matthew 13:34 to 36. Matthew reiterates Jesus' purpose in using parables and transitions to private explanation. 1. Jesus speaks only in parables, verses 34 to 35. All these things Jesus said to the crowds in parables. Indeed, he said nothing to them without a parable. This was to fulfill what was spoken by the prophet. I will open my mouth in parables. I will utter what has been hidden since the foundation of the world. ESV, quoting Psalm 78, verse 2. Matthew explicitly states that Jesus' choice to speak solely in parables to the crowds at this point fulfills Psalm 78, verse 2. This emphasizes God's sovereign plan to reveal previously hidden truths what has been hidden since the foundation of the world through the Messiah, though in a veiled way to those who are unwilling to understand. Second disciples request explanation, verse 36. Then he left the crowds and went into the house, and his disciples came to him, saying, "Explain to us the parable of the weeds of the field." ESV. Exposition. Jesus separates from the crowds, going into the house, a place for private instruction. The disciples, showing their desire for understanding, request an explanation of the parable of the weeds, which they found particularly puzzling. 8. Explanation of the parable of the weeds. Matthew 13:37-43. Jesus reveals the meaning of this parable, clarifying the end-time separation and judgment. 1. The sower, field, and seed, verses 37-38a. He answered, "The one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, and the good seed are the sons of the kingdom." ESV. Jesus identifies himself as the Son of Man, a title signifying his humanity and divine authority, especially in judgment. The field is not the church, but the world at large. The good seed are genuine believers, sons of the kingdom. 2. The weeds and the enemy, verses 38b to 39a. The weeds are the sons of the evil one, and the enemy who sowed them is the devil. ESV. The weeds are those who appear to be part of the kingdom, but are actually sons of the evil one, false believers, those who belong to Satan. The enemy is clearly identified as the devil. 3. The harvest and the harvesters, verse 39b. The harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are angels. ESV. This parable focuses on eschatology, end times. The harvest is the final judgment at the end of the age. The reapers are angels, God's agents of judgment. 4. Judgment of the weeds, verses 40-42. Just as the weeds are gathered and burned with fire, so will it be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send his angels, and they will gather out of his kingdom all causes of sin and all lawbreakers, and throw them into the fiery furnace. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. ESV. This describes the final decisive judgment. Angels will separate causes of sin, stumbling blocks, and lawbreakers, those who reject God's will, from the kingdom, casting them into the fiery furnace, a clear image of eternal punishment, torment, and despair. 5. Glory of the righteous, verse 43. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. ESV. In contrast to the judgment of the wicked, the righteous, true believers, those made righteous by Christ, will be glorified and shine like the sun in God's eternal kingdom. This is a promise of future glory and vindication. 9. Parables of hidden treasure and pearl, Matthew 13:44-46. These parables emphasize the surpassing value of the kingdom of heaven and the costly commitment required to obtain it. 1. the hidden treasure, verse 44. The kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field, which a man found and hid. Then in his joy he goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. ESV. The treasure represents the inestimable value of the kingdom of heaven and salvation in Christ. The man means someone who discovers this profound value. His joy leads him to sell all that he has to obtain it. This illustrates the radical, costly, and joyful commitment required to gain the kingdom. Imagine someone accidentally digging up a chest of gold in a field they don't own. Overjoyed, they quickly rebury it, then excitedly sell everything they possess, their house, car, and all their belongings, to buy that field, knowing its immense value. The joy of the discovery makes the sacrifice seem insignificant. 2. The pearl of great value, verses 45 to 46. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant in search of fine pearls, who, on finding one pearl of great value, went and sold all that he had and bought it. ESV. Like the treasure, this parable emphasizes the surpassing value of the kingdom. The merchant is actively seeking. When he finds the one pearl of great value, he liquidates all his other assets to acquire it. This illustrates the singular, supreme value of Christ and his kingdom, demanding total surrender and sacrifice. A dedicated pearl merchant spends his life searching for the perfect gem. Finally, he discovers one flawless, incredibly rare pearl of unimaginable beauty and worth. Without hesitation, he sells every other pearl, every possession, every asset he owns to purchase that single pearl. The value of the kingdom is so absolute that all other earthly goods pale in comparison. X, the parable of the net, Matthew 13:47 to 50. This parable, like the weeds, illustrates the final separation and judgment at the end of the age. 1. Gathering fish, verses 47 to 48. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a net that was thrown into the sea and gathered fish of every kind. When it was full, men drew it ashore and sat down and sorted the good into containers, but threw away the bad. ESV. The net represents the proclamation of the gospel, gathering all kinds of people, both genuine and superficial followers, into the visible community of those who claim to belong to the kingdom. Fish of every kind symbolizes the diverse mix of people who respond to the gospel. The separation comes later. Fishermen cast a large net into the sea, catching all sorts of marine life, some valuable, some worthless. They don't sort the fish out in the water. They wait until the net is full and brought to shore. 2. Separation at the end of the age, verses 49 to 50. So it will be at the end of the age, the angels will come out and separate the evil from the righteous and throw them into the fiery furnace. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth, ASV. The end of the age is again the time of final judgment. Angels will perform the decisive separation between the evil, the unrighteous, and the righteous, true believers. The wicked will be cast into the fiery furnace, a terrifying image of eternal punishment, torment, and despair. This reinforces the warning from the parable of the weeds. The fishermen on the shore meticulously separate the edible fish from the worthless ones. The good are kept, the bad are discarded. Similarly, at the final judgment, God's angels will perfectly separate true believers from those who merely professed faith with eternal consequences. 11. Conclusion of Parabolic Discourse, Matthew 13:51 to 52. Jesus affirms his disciples' understanding and their new role. 1. Disciples' understanding, verse 51. Have you understood all these things? They said to him, yes. ESV. Jesus directly questions his disciples about their comprehension. Their affirmative answer indicates that they, unlike the crowds, have grasped the spiritual truths about the kingdom. 2. The trained scribe, verse 52. And he said to them, therefore every scribe who has been trained for the kingdom of heaven is like a master of a house who brings out of his treasure what is new and what is old. ESV. Jesus describes the ideal teacher for the kingdom of heaven. A scribe who has been trained for the kingdom of heaven is someone thoroughly grounded in Old Testament truth, the old, and now understands how Jesus, the new, fulfills and expands that truth. This teacher can draw from both the Old Covenant revelation and the new truths of the kingdom to instruct others effectively. Imagine a wise librarian who not only knows all the ancient and classic books, old, but also fully understands and can explain the latest, most cutting-edge discoveries new. He can draw from both treasures to educate and enrich others. The disciples are to become such teachers. 12. Jesus rejected at Nazareth, Matthew 13:53 to 58. The chapter concludes with a powerful contrast. Jesus' rejection in his hometown. 1. Return to Nazareth, verses 53 to 54a. And when Jesus finished these parables, he went away from there, and coming to his hometown, he taught them in their synagogue. ESV. After teaching about the mysteries of the kingdom, Jesus returns to Nazareth, his hometown. He teaches in their synagogue, demonstrating his customary practice. 2. Local questions about his identity, verses 54b to 56, so that they were astonished and said, where did this man get this wisdom and these mighty works? Is not this the carpenter's son? Is not his mother called Mary? And are not his brothers James and Joseph and Simon and Judas? And are not all his sisters with us? Where then did this man get all these things? ESV. The people of Nazareth are astonished by his teaching and miracles, but their familiarity breeds contempt. They question his authority based on his humble origins, the carpenter's son, and common family members. They cannot reconcile his ordinary background with his extraordinary power. 3. A prophet without honor, verse 57, and they took offense at him, and Jesus said to them, a prophet is not without honor, except in his hometown and in his own household. ESV. They took offense, stumbled at him. Jesus states the proverbial truth: familiarity often breeds contempt, making it difficult for people to accept truth from someone they knew in a lesser capacity. 4, lack of miracles due to unbelief, verse 58. And he did not do many mighty works there because of their unbelief, ESV. This is a sobering conclusion. Jesus' power was not diminished, but their unbelief created a barrier to his performing many mighty works. While God is sovereign, human unbelief can limit the manifestation of his power in specific contexts. Imagine a brilliant musician who returns to his childhood village. His old neighbors say, "Isn't that just young John, son of the shoemaker? How can he be a world-renowned virtuoso?" Their familiarity and skepticism prevent them from truly hearing his music. The musician, unable to inspire them, plays a few simple tunes and leaves, as their lack of belief limits his ability to move them with his full artistry. Theological significance of Matthew 13, the nature of the kingdom of heaven. The parables reveal the kingdom's characteristics during Jesus' present age, its growth, its hidden nature, its pervasive influence, the mixture of true and false believers within its visible manifestation, its ultimate value, and its final judgment. The purpose of parables: they serve to reveal truth to those receptive to God's Spirit while concealing it from those hardened in unbelief, fulfilling prophecy. The urgency of response: the parable of the sower highlights that the effectiveness of God's word depends on the condition of the hearer's heart, calling for genuine reception and fruitfulness. The costly value of the kingdom: the parables of the treasure and pearl emphasize that the kingdom of heaven is of supreme worth, demanding radical, joyful, and total commitment and sacrifice. Final separation and judgment. Parables, such as the weeds in the net, clearly teach that a definitive separation and eternal judgment await at the end of the age, when the righteous will be glorified and the wicked punished. Jesus' rejection. The conclusion in Nazareth powerfully illustrates that even Jesus' own people, through unbelief, could reject him, limiting the manifestation of his power.